Hello again, and welcome back to my second book review. In this case, we'll be looking at my top 10 autumn reads recommendations, for which I had received some requests. I should be back to my regularly scheduled programming for videos soon, but I thought, with the chill in the air, it's the perfect weather for grabbing a mug of hot coffee or tea, or in my case, hot chocolate, and curling up with a good book. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so book reviews. Most of the books that I will cover are going to be mostly things that I like, which tends to be young adult fiction, probably most of which girls would like. Just drop my ring there. Just heads up on that. The first one that I wanted to talk about is Robin McKinley's Rose Daughter. Robin McKinley is an author for all seasons. She's just fantastic. Rose Daughter is incredible. It is Robin McKinley's second retelling of Beauty and the Beast. It's just beyond. It's super slow and syrupy and fairy tale-y, and if you're just looking for a good book to get lost in, this is the one. Number 2, of course, a classic, literally, but also for me, Tolkien's The Hobbit. Absolutely incredible. My Uncle John got me a copy when I was a kid for my birthday one year, I think, or Christmas, and I literally read that thing until the cover fell off. If you have not read The Hobbit, if you like Lord of the Rings or want to like Lord of the Rings but are either intimidated or put off by the length, it's, to me, the most enjoyable of Tolkien's works. It's the most readable, and I think that shows because this was the first of his works to get published. All the things that you would like about Lord of the Rings without the length, without 3 pages of detail about the elves' grotto, it's much more get to the point. It's very interesting. It's very fun. Of course, very child-friendly. It's kind of this cozy idea of armchair adventure. Bilbo Baggins is going on an adventure and you get to see all the crazy stuff that happens to him, but it's from the comfort of wherever you're reading. So there's number 2. Number 3, Coldest Girl in Cold Town, is just beyond. I know I always say that. I know it doesn't really mean anything, but when I say that, what I mean is, if you look for an average book that's a 6 or a 7 out of 10, this is a 10 out of 10. Holly Black is just, what do you say about Holly Black? She's incredible. When it comes to the whole LGBTQ situation, there is some of that stuff in here, but it is very, very brief, and I basically chose to ignore it. Hopefully no hate is gonna hate on that. The Coldest Girl in Cold Town is about this teenage girl that wakes up. Vampires are real in this world that is set in this book, and she wakes up from a party where there have been vampires while she slept, and they literally just happen not to find her, and so that's why she's the only one that survived this entire party. So then it's basically her sort of adventure as she tries to figure out her life after that. I won't say much more than that for the sake of spoilers, but basically it's kind of her life adventure, sort of a, journey to find herself, but also to figure out what to do in the aftermath of what's happened to her and, of course, her friends. Mary Oliver. There is something about autumn and poetry that's, perfect. Obviously, you could make an argument for every single season that could be the case, but something about autumn in particular in poetry, kind of the, starving artist vibe. It's very exciting. Anyway, so Mary Oliver, all her books are incredible, all her works of poetry. She's considered one of the preeminent American poets of the 20th century by many people. Her work's been featured in a lot of different anthologies, I believe. And Why Awake Early is not explicitly an autumn book, but just her tone is just so perfect for autumn. Again, I will not read you an excerpt to help this video move along, but she's absolutely incredible. I would really recommend any of her books of poetry in autumn, but Why Awake Early is a classic. Excuse me. Okay, so there is number 4. Number 5, An Enchantment of Ravens. I know I've already talked about this in a previous video. This is her first book. It should not even be legal. Most people couldn't get this on like their 10th book or their 20th book, but this is her first book. Look at this cover. It's not the point, but it is a beautiful cover. Doggone. Anyway, An Enchantment of Ravens is about another teenage girl. I tend to read teen books for girls, who is like she's a painter, like for elves. It's like sort of an alternate universe where like it's sort of just like ours, except they have elves, if that makes sense. She gets kidnapped by an elf because he's unhappy with the painting that she's done, and then it's her adventure, sort of romance with him, but also kind of trying to figure out how to like stay alive with all these elves that are not a super fan of some of the things that she's done or going to do. 10 out of 10. Perfect for fall, perfect anytime, but especially in autumn, which we are still technically in, even though, you know, we're getting close to December. Sorrow's Knot. I got this like for really cheap from a library. Sorrow's Knot by Erin Bow. Wow, Erin Bow came out of absolutely nowhere. Her first book is called Plain Kate, which I liked pretty good, but this is just, wow. It does not get better than this. Another teenage girl is going on an adventure. We got a big theme here happening, and in her case, she lives in a world where people bind the spirits of the dead. They have to, otherwise they will kill everyone. All of these books sound way more creepy than they do to read. I'm not really into creepy factor. This is all like a 1 out of 10 on creepiness, I promise. It's not as bad as I'm making it sound. Anyway, she goes on an adventure because the knots are breaking that hold all these dead spirits, and so they're starting to basically like get closer and closer to their village, and they don't know why, and so she has to figure out like what's going on. And she's not even trying to save everyone per se. She just has like these couple friends that are specifically in danger. Kind of a Katniss Everdeen situation for the Hunger Games readers out there. This author is absolutely fantastic at the kind of writing style where she leaves a lot of things to your imagination, where there are a lot of things that just sort of show up that the author just kind of leaves there. So I kind of like that. It adds to the mystery, the spookiness, the vibe, the mists of time and stuff in the story. Anyway, 10 out of 10. Sorrow's Knot. Big reread. I'm not even sure how many times I've reread this. So good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number 7. Scorpio Races. I already talked about Scorpio Races in a previous video. Of course, Maggie Stiefvater. She's one of the best, like top 5 young adult authors I've ever read. Scorpio Races, published in 2011. Wow, this is peak Maggie Stiefvater. You can tell she really developed her own voice and her own style at a certain point, and this book absolutely displays that style. It's absolutely devastating. You feel like you can feel the words. Another book that I don't have with me, or a series that I don't have with me, but that she wrote around this time, of course, the Shiver series. So Shiver, Linger Forever, the Wolves of Mercyfall series, and then also the Raven Boys series. Wow, Raven Boys. All of these books are unreal. So Scorpio Races in particular, you could say there's 2 main protagonists. There's a young man and a young woman, and they are sort of destined to fall in love. But also there are these Scorpio races, and it is sort of this Irish mythology that Maggie notes at some point that she pulls from, of these horses that come out of the sea called the Kapelushka. That's the pronunciation that she says is the correct pronunciation. And the thing is that they basically are sort of carnivores, including to humans, but they're like so fast, like so much faster than a regular horse, and so people try to sort of tame them enough just to race them, but it can be very dangerous because they're sort of like a bear or a leopard in a horse's body or something. You can sort of control them, but you can never really tame them, if that makes sense. So basically, the main characters are both racing in what's called, the island has, it's set on an island. The island has these Scorpio races where people race explicitly just the Kapelushka, and then there's this big prize like every year. And our 2 main protagonists both desperately need and want to win the race for a variety of reasons, you know, that you can think of. There's all kinds of reasons people want to win a race: money, livelihood, whatever. But yet at the same time, these 2 protagonists are of course falling in love. So it's just super fun, just the whole thing. And the Kapelushka are, exactly the way Maggie Stiefvater wants you to picture them, both terrifying and beautiful at the same time. And I think it's supposed to be, you know, some symbolism for the wilds, the ocean, nature. Nature is both beautiful and terrifying, and neither one really mitigates the other. And so it's this really weird thing where you're attracted to it, but you're scared of it at the same time. So that great tug of war. So that's number 7, Scorpio Races. 10 out of 10 we recommend. Number 8. I got it for cheap when I saw my library was getting rid of it, which I absolutely could not believe. My sister at Random Keto, plug, shout out to Charlotte. Hi, Charlotte. She is the one that recommended this book to me. I really took this one. The Stepsister's Tale is this extremely randomly really good book. This book has no business being this good. If you've ever seen the movie, what is that movie? Princess Caraboo. Such a random tiny movie from like 2001 or something, and that movie is insanely good. There's no reason that movie should be that good. Well, same with this book. This is also about a young female protagonist who's in her teens, big shocker there, but The Stepsister's Tale, if you can guess, of course, it's a retelling of Cinderella, and it's basically a concept of like, if Cinderella was a real story, so kind of like the movie Ever After, like if Cinderella was based on a real story, this is sort of like that. But like there's not really the French influence, it's more like British influence, and also like there are some gypsies, as they're called in the book, or something, which sort of brings in some, you know, sort of Romanian, Transylvanian, wherever the region is that gypsies are supposed to have been from. It's not just so good that it's a retelling of Cinderella, it's this beautiful exploration of family dynamics and, of course, blended families, because that's the concept of Cinderella, right? You've got a father and his daughter, and he marries this woman with her daughters. And so this concept that our family dynamics from our original families can be so different, even though they can seem so culturally similar. My parents were not divorced. I never experienced a blended family, but I know plenty of people that have blended families. And it's just crazy when two family dynamics collide, things that you wouldn't expect to cause so much conflict that do. This story just breathes life into this idea of Cinderella and how a lot of what we get in the mythology of Cinderella could actually be explained by these shifting family dynamics from a recently blended family, and how difficult it would have been in real life for, as it probably is, you know, today in a family that would be a blended family today, how difficult that would be. People come from different economic backgrounds, different social backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds. Very thought-provoking. So good. All right, number 9. Jonathan Stroud, The Empty Grave. So this happens to be the final book in the Lockwood & Co. series. I have a lot to say about Jonathan Stroud and about his famous Bartimaeus trilogy and a lot of other books that he has written, but I'm going to try to constrain myself. Him and Eowyn Colfer and Rick Riordan are some of the biggest sort of like mainstream young adult authors today, and with good reason. They're so good. But Jonathan Stroud is just, you know, he's up there with Scott Westerfeld. He's just beyond. Not that Eowyn Colfer is not insanely talented, and Rick Riordan is good, although I would say he's the most kind of mainstream of that group. I was supposed to constrain myself, and I'm not constraining myself. All I will say, by the way, is quick plug for the Bartimaeus trilogy. I don't have any of the Bartimaeus books on me from Jonathan Stroud. I have been trying in vain to get my sister to read the Bartimaeus, anybody really, to read the Bartimaeus trilogy since I read it. No one will listen to me. No one will read it. It probably sounds insane. It's about this genie in an alternate version of Great Britain in the 1800s. But I promise you, if you will read the Bartimaeus trilogy, you will die of astonishment at how interesting those books are. Okay, that's not what I'm focused on. What I'm focused on is Lockwood & Company. So this is Jonathan Stroud's, I guess, next major series after Bartimaeus. There is some creepiness. I'm really not trying to bring creepiness into here. However, I can say that these are autumn books, and you know, there will be some creepiness at some point, probably. These books are not as creepy as they sound. I can't handle real creepiness. None of that. Okay, that's not the point. The point is, Lockwood & Company is about this team of, you guessed it, teenagers who have to deal with, in an alternate universe, like in an alternate, basically Great Britain. This seems to be a running theme in these books that I am telling you, but it's not on purpose. These ghosts are taking over, like, everywhere. And people have come up with these ways to basically fight them, but they don't know why the ghosts are appearing. They don't really know what the pattern is. They don't really know how to fundamentally stop them. They don't know how to even kill them. All they know how to do is basically trap them. Excuse me. Or maybe they do. That's not the point. The point is, Lockwood is the name of the leader of one of these teen groups. And one of the themes of the book, which is very common in young adult fiction, is only the young people can save us. Because only the young people can see the ghost. But still, you know, it's still interesting reading. These books are so well written. You forget that he's there, like, as a narrator. Like, people like Maggie Stiefvater are so good that you, like, know she's there, but in the best possible way. Jonathan Stroud is so good in a different way. He's so good that he disappears. You don't feel like you're reading something, you feel like you're living something. And it's just, wow. So, this is the final Lockwood & Co., which my husband got for me for Christmas, the first year we were dating. And I thought was very sweet. I know that if I was to show you the Lockwood series, I should show you the first one, but this one is my favorite. Of course, I recommend starting at the beginning because they're not standalones. You need to read each book. It's meant to be in a series. But this is my favorite of the books. You get all the culmination of all of the mysteries and the relationships that have been developing among the characters, and all of the payoff that you have been expecting throughout the series is 100% here. I know all of these books are 10 out of 10. That's why I'm recommending it, but it's still worth saying 10 out of 10. Number 10, Naomi Novik's A Deadly Education. So, Naomi Novik has a long and storied history as an author. I believe it was in the 90s. She did her Temeraire series, which I attempted but was a little too grown up for me. I don't mean in an intellectual sense, I mean like in a moral sense. And also maybe just the tiniest bit boring sometimes, as adult books tend to be for me. Then she wrote the books Uprooted and Spinning Silver, both of which are adult books and both of which I can't really recommend on my channel, even though they're super good, but they're not totally family friendly, and I myself was a little bit uncomfortable at times. But they're absolutely incredibly written. Spinning Silver in particular actually isn't terrible, like morally speaking. I have it on my shelf, so good. This is her next book after Spinning Silver, I believe. It was published in 2020. A friend of mine got me this for Christmas last year, which was super exciting. This book is gorgeously done. Look at this, just the beautiful gold leaf and the pretty maps. Ooh, so pretty. A Deadly Education is about, you'll be shocked to hear, a teenage girl who goes away to school for magic. So it's, you know, people have said, commentators have said, sort of a grown-up Harry Potter, basically. This is a fresh take. This is a fantastic book. This is just generally a really, really good book. It's very action-packed. It's like reminiscent of all of my favorite tween magic adventures that I read when I was 12, like kind of the Eowyn Colfer, Artemis Fowl vibe, but like with some of the nuance and the interest of, you know, an older young adult book or even like an adult fiction book. So I love that about it. I love that it's so action-packed. It doesn't take itself very seriously. It's got some really kind of funny, goofy moments, but then it also is nuanced. It is sensitive. It is layered. I like all of that. And Naomi Novik is undeniably a masterful storyteller. Her style is witty without being overly academic. It's intellectual without being esoteric. It's interesting without being self-important, and that's a really hard line, I feel like, for authors to walk sometimes. Is the smarter you sound, sometimes the less interesting the book is, or the more arrogant or puffed up it comes across. And Naomi Novik in this book, and maybe it's because, you know, maybe she had a really good editor, she really hits it out of the park with this one. All of her wit, all of her intellect, all of her kind of sassiness is on display without any of the teenage girl hero who don't need no man, who's sort of really boring and one-dimensional. There's none of that. That was number 10, and I would of course give it a 10 out of 10. Let me know in the comments if you are interested to read any of these books, if you have already read any or all of these books. I probably could do one for winter as well. For anyone that's interested, I could either incorporate it into another video I was already making, or I could make it as its own standalone video. And if you have any other types of recommendations you'd like me to do. So, thanks so much for watching. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.